So, hello and welcome to this new episode of Magnetic Talks. My name is Maria Gruber. I'm your host in this show, and I'm bringing to you live interviews with experts, entrepreneurs, personalities. We talk a lot about personal stories, but also about mindset, personal development, marketing, of course. And I'm super excited about my today's guest. If you are here live, if you're joining us live on Facebook or on Zoom, please feel free to ask questions or to comment. Everybody's watching the replay on the different platforms. Welcome to this new episode. Today, I welcome Eva Gruber. Gruber is the most common surname in Austria, so we are not related. There's just so many of us. Eva is a habit coach and mental fitness advocate. We will learn in a minute or two what this all means. But first of all, thank you, Eva. Welcome to this show, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
We tune right into it, and always the first question is always, please give us a little bit of your personal background, your story into entrepreneurship, and also into your super exciting coaching business.
Yeah. Actually, today I'm a habit coach and a mental fitness advocate. What does this say? So I support managers and entrepreneurs who always have too much on their plate. And I help them to manage their time and energy. And now comes the big trick. The true levels and leverages I can use here is forming new habits, routines, and especially establishing a mental fitness practice. This really sets you up for creating a new behavior and especially a positive mindset that is very, very needed in stressful times, when you're anxious, when something is not working out well. And I haven't been able to do that for all my life, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned a lot during my life in many stages. I have been a business educator in the beginning. I've studied that, but I've very quickly gone into the corporate sector, into the section of sustainability, corporate and social sustainability and innovation, especially in the energy sector. And there I can learn at some level, after many, many years, this is not it. I want to be more active and want to be more profound. I want to create my own solutions for people that need it. And then I founded one of my first ventures. I have two actually founded so far. And my second venture right now is really going in more detail into behavior economics, like how does behavior work? How do we think? How do we act? And how can we help ourselves? How can we actually get trained by easy things, easy tools, and also more lasting, complex tools? And by that, really make life easier, make everyday's work easier, collaborate better with others, and by that also establish our own ventures in a better way.
Wow. I think we all need this, and I think it's probably a big trend, right? That we need it more and more because life gets busier and busier. This is what we perceive, or it's also subjective, but it's so much. We all have so much on our plates, and it's super exciting arena. And we know there's a lot of literature out there and a lot of books about how to form habits.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, before we dive into your specialty, the tiny habits, why is it so important? What are habits and why is it so important for us to have those habits?
Yes, actually habits are automated behavior. That's why, especially the bad ones, come so easy because they're automated. You just simply don't have to think about them. You just do them, right? The way you pick some food up, you eat some snacks in between, the way you get up in the morning, the way maybe you move your body, right? All of that is really automated behavior. And you have to differentiate between what is a routine and what is a habit, right? A routine is something that is a very strong established behavior that is for many people, especially happening in the mornings, but also in the evenings, rather less during the day. This is actually an issue, but we'll come back to that later. And the routine is something where you have different kinds of behaviors. It can be habits, one after the other. And by that, you're getting into a certain flow. Something is by that also more easier because, of course, in the morning, we have to get up, right? We have been trained as kids already, going to kindergarten, to school, then studying and all that. Also now going to our workplaces, doing our job, we have to get up at some point. This is most of the times not our ideal time to get up, and this is another issue I deal with my clients, but we have to have routines that get us going. And as said, routines is something different from a habit. A habit is something that is really automated at best. The bad habits we actually want to break, we want to stop, we want to reduce. The good ones, the supportive ones, we want to, of course, create and establish in our lives. And a habit per se is really something you can create. It's existing for in different ways. It can build on different prompts. This is getting you active. And actually, it's also like something you should really celebrate that you did that. This will also like enable you to be more sparked by that and be more motivated in the end also to do it.
Super exciting, the difference between routine and habits, because I think we all mix it and like use one for the other. Why is it so difficult to establish those habits, or why do the bad habits stuck with us? Why is it that we cannot? Well, we can, because you prove it and you coach people to do it, but on our own it's so difficult, right? And we do this every day. So why is that?
Yes, actually, one of the big reasons why it is so hard to establish a new habit is that we actually do not want it. This is what research shows. This is what I see with my partners from Stanford I work with. People just think they should do something, right? But in the end, they are not really connected to themselves, or they're not really true to themselves. And in the end, they find out this is not something I want. For example, I thought for a long time, I want to keep up and pick up my running again, right? I used to be a runner for quite some years and I loved it. And now I was like, COVID lockdown, what can I do on top, right? What is easy to do, and I don't need any studio or anybody, right? And then I found out after some time, no, this is not what I really want to do. I want to move my body in a different way. I'm a very strong yogi, so I just don't want to do yoga and other practices. I want to move in a certain way. And I found out that, let's say, for example, African dance, which I did for many years, this is something I really, really love, right? So how can I do African dance in my home, right? So it's all about really finding your aspiration. This is the true why that you have for starting something. And if this is true for you, then this is one of the big reasons why you also can really get started in your habit. So like finding out, is this a true want, or is it just a should I'm following because I tell it to myself, magazines tell it to me, or people tell it to me.
So it's like externally coming to me. It's like society says, my friends say, my peers say, everybody's doing it, so I should do it, right? But if I'm not really connected, it's really hard. So those habits are so important because they give structure to our day, right? And to our week.
Yes. But with habits, actually, the beauty about them is they can really support your aspirations. You can build aspirations for many things. You can build them for your work, for your private life. You could say at work, I want to be more focused, right? Or for private, I want to move my body more, right? Or I want to engage more creatively with my friends, right? These are all aspirations. They're the bigger pictures for you, the why you get going. And then for that, in order to get going, we need to have the habits.
The habit is like a means to an end.
Yes, they support achieving your aspirations. And you should know your habits, especially also the bad ones, because the bad ones can hinder you in that. They can even stop you from doing that, achieving that. And that's why habits are so important. And habits can be formed in different ways. They can be prompted by something that you actively do. You could say, after I put my coffee mug down in the morning, this is a strong routine within your morning and your breakfast, I will read one page in my book and celebrate myself with saying, so good for me, right? This is something where you get prompted by an active behavior of yours within a daily routine. And then there's other habits, which are actually beautiful ones. They're called pearl habits, like a necklace with pearls, right? And these pearl habits, they're so special because they're prompted by negative emotion. And now in these times of crisis, and I always like name COVID as rather like an emotional crisis. Yes, I know it's a health crisis, it's an economic crisis in the end, and many people suffer from that. But in the end, what comes out, it's an emotional crisis. So we go through a lot of negative emotions in times like these. And we even have the stages of, sadness and grieving, right? And people are in a certain deeper valley now, like grieving out of certain experiences, like business is not going so well, clients are like like saying no. All of that, of course, is causing sadness at some point and some stage of grieving, right? And here you can use these pearl habits, and you get prompted by a negative emotion of yours, and then you get active with a positive also like habit, and then you celebrate yourself on top.
Okay, but those pearl habits, they're very individual ones, right?
Yes, every habit is super individual.
Super
So like,
individual, right?
yes,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
can have there's tools, there's so-called recipes for building a habit, but then in the end, every recipe, every design of a recipe looks differently, and it needs to be designed. So when I work with my clients on designing recipes, then sometimes this takes a couple of days until we really find out, oh, this is my strong prompt. It's really anchored into a strong routine of mine. And then this is my habit because this is what I really want to do. And how can I make it as easy as possible? And this is the way I celebrate in a very authentic way.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting with the recipe. So is it that I have a recipe for every habit, or is it that I need to find myself the let's say the general recipe how I can form different habits then? Is it like
there's a general tool which is a recipe, so there's a general formula.
okay.
And this formula is really like first you need a prompt.
Yeah.
It needs to be super specific, and it needs to be anchored into an existing strong routine. And then you have the habit, the action, the behavior per se, right? This should be rather short than too long, because this is another hurdle for us. We make it too hard, we make it too difficult. And by that, we can just keep up with it for a couple of days, maybe some weeks, but then once times get stressful or something else happens, you will drop this habit immediately because it's too hard, it's too long, it's too heavy for you.
We've been there. We all
yes, we all have.
So this brings us to your specialty, the tiny habits.
Sure.
What's the magic behind the tiny habits?
Yeah, this methodology is created by Stanford, by the Stanford Behavior Design Model Design Lab that I'm working with, and here they found out after 20 years of research the different magical ingredients, if you want to say so, what habit formation really needs, and what are the obstacles that we have when building new habits. And one, of course, revelation was making tiny habits possible. And how can you do that? As said, you really have to have a very specific prompt. You have to have a very, very, very tiny habit, a behavior. It's so ridiculously tiny that it's doable in less than 30 seconds. So sometimes you think like, how can I do something like this? Like, let's pick up one. For example, many people love reading, right? Or we should keep up with our daily reading, like reading newspapers or certain articles and magazines, just to be, educated in our jobs. And this is sometimes really hard to do. And I established again a reading routine quite some time ago. But in the beginning, I was sure, like, I want to read more. Of course, I want to read half an hour a day. But then I was like, no, Eva, go back to tiny habits. And back then I had the recipe, which was after I put my coffee mug into the sink, this was part of my morning routine, I will sit down, open my book, and read one chapter in the sense of one abstract, right? And celebrate myself with so good, right? This was it. This is all. And you can even make this easier. So tiny habits is really either starting super, super small, right? The starting point, the starter step should be super small, like reading one paragraph, one abstract, or scaling back. Scaling back means, of course, maybe you, Maria, thought like, of course, then I read 5 pages, right? And then you do that for 7 days in a row, but then, the mornings get stressful again and appointments come in. And then, of course, it's not doable anymore. It feels so difficult, so hard. And there, again, you could scale back. So you could either start small, tiny, or you could scale back and say, okay, then I just read 2 paragraphs, 2 abstracts, and that's it. Right?
That kind of reminds me of my, I don't know, is it a yoga practice or is it a yoga habit? I was trying to set up in the morning and, super motivated, starting off the first week and doing 1 hour. And then you just realize, okay, I don't have 1 hour for my yoga practice in the morning.
Yes.
And like you said, I said, I'm not skipping it, but I scale it back. And so I just do 10 minutes of sun salutation.
Beautiful.
Some stretches. Yes. That's the meaning of it, right?
The meaning of it is really putting the right anchor in with the right prompt, then doing it very tiny, and then already celebrating. And by that, ticking it off and having a very good experience. And by that, keeping the bar really low. And sometimes habits, like a gratefulness habit, for example, let's say you want to be more mindful, more grateful, you want to value your team more or whatever. So maybe once a day, you make a very short gratefulness habit with the tiny habits methods. And then you use this method and it's lasting just 30 seconds and it stays like that. It's not longer than 30 seconds. That's it. But other habits, of course, they want to grow, right? And tiny habits is there just, a door opener towards growing a habit. It can grow into, of course, reading for 20 minutes, right? Or reading a chapter a day or something, right? But for that, I have to establish everything around that. And there comes in other work I do with my clients, like really setting up new routines, also like related to your own energy level of all your energy that you have throughout the days, also your chronotype and all these topics that I work with. And this is just a different topic, but tiny habits, the true magic is making it so tiny, and by that so easy that you can really follow through with it sustainably.
Okay, I have 2 questions here. One is, because there's a lot of myth around how many days we need to establish a habit, tiny or small or big. Is there a real number of days or weeks that we need to do something to establish it as a habit? And my second question would be, okay, I want to get these habits into my daily routine into my days. Do I start with one tiny habit and I keep going until it's established and then the next one? Or is it risky to do 2 or 3 at the same time?
Yeah.
It is.
Very much. No, first question, first answer. There is no magic number how long it takes you to establish a habit. That's actually really a habit myth. I don't know how it came up there. Of course, people need sometimes a number. They need, some, deadlines, a number, something that is on the horizon that shows you, of course, Eva, or like Maria, if you do this for 21 days, this is your horizon, this is your goal. And by that, you keep on pushing yourself, right? But pushing yourself is actually not the right approach. You should be pulled by something, should be curious, and by that, really make things happen. So I cannot tell you the number of days it takes actually to make your habit last. Some habits, if they're super tiny and really wanted, and by that easy to do, right? And efficient for your inspiration, they can start from one day to the other, right? For example, picking up this reading habit and saying, of course, after I put my coffee mug into the sink, I will pick up my book and read one abstract and celebrate. This could maybe really stick with you if you keep the bar low forever, right? If you want to increase the bar, it can, of course, but this can really be established in one day. Other habits, they are really not easily established or maybe not established at all. And here we come back to maybe you don't want it, or maybe it's still too hard and you have to make it easier, right? Or maybe it's not at all efficient and supportive for your aspiration. Okay, so there's no number. Sometimes you really have to be patient. And I kind of experiment and design and test run these habits a lot with my clients in different programs. So sometimes it really takes a longer time to really go into that in details, really be curious, and really by that find out how your day actually works, how your routines works, and actually how you behave in the end. So that's the answer to number 1. Is that pleasing to you?
Well, for me, it's fine. I kind of figured it out, because I really thought, okay, I was trying a lot of things in the past, and there's always, you know, somebody saying 20 days or 60 days or whatever. And like you said, if it doesn't really resonate with me, and if it's not the habit to be with me, even after 60 days, I don't feel it internalized. It's still
Very
hard.
much.
And with other things, I do it a week and I feel so good about it, and it just feels so right. So like you said, it's always about how am I connected to this habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here comes in, and I answer your second question in a second. Here comes in another topic I really go deep with my clients. It's the topic of mental self-sabotage. Like we have mental saboteurs that constantly sabotage our mind. The inner judge that says, Mariam, that's not good enough. Why didn't you do it? Right? Or, you know, blaming others, judging others, saying like, why didn't you do that? She should know by now, right? All of that actually is also very strongly embedded in many of us. It's different saboteurs, different levels of their, you know, their active behavior and all that. But in the end, all of that is also playing into your behavior and into your habits. And you need to learn about what's your mind about at the time being. And this is connecting to habit formation, right? If I'm, again, if I'm pushed towards something, or I pushed others to do something, this is your mental saboteurs at play, right? If you're pulled towards something, if this is really something you really want to do out of the best reasons, this is your sage perspective. This is your inner wisdom, the essence in you that is really clear-headed, is really smart, and is down to earth in a calm way. This is also something to discover and to keep in mind, because this is very, very strongly impacting your behavior. And if you want to, I can answer your second question about
please.
How many habits and all of that. That's always a very popular question. So if I work with my clients and especially run with them some programs where it's about designing tiny habits, the recommendation also like based on research is to really just run 3 habits at a time, at least for 1 month, and really test run them. Because sometimes also like after 2 weeks, it just shows this is actually not a strong routine of mine. And that's why I shouldn't anchor in this habit into this routine, right? So like some habits can be also like dropped, you know, like sometimes we just discover this habit is actually not so important to me, even though it's kind of like important for, let's say, my aspiration, but there's other ones that are more important. Or sometimes also like these habits, they have fulfilled their purpose, right? So you can actually let them go and let new ones come in. So 3 at a time is recommended, especially as a beginner.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so those habits, they help us to stay focused, to stay energized, right? To be more balanced, to be more productive, to get more things done at the end, because it gives you structure and energy and all that. So if I was to say, okay, well, I've been struggling forever to establish some of those habits that are supposed to be in my day, and I hire you as a habit coach. I didn't even know there's a habit coach before I met you.
So many people know, don't know.
How are you working with your clients? How can I imagine this process of you coaching me into successfully establishing my habits?
Yes. So oftentimes we start off with an 8 weeks program, which is actually totally about your mental self-sabotage and your 10 mental saboteurs and your sage. Because finding out about that is so important to really discover how I think, and based on that, how I act, right? And the intention here is to really discover this mental self-sabotage and enable you to shift into a positive thinking and action, especially when stressed or anxious or all of that negative situations. So here you can really train 3 brain muscles. This is very fascinating. It's super fascinating. It's in collaboration with big partners of mine. They're like big researchers and developers and one of the leading in globally in mental fitness, mental health, and all that. And here you can train 3 brain muscles. Within programs I run, I do one-on-one coaching with you. I use a very beautiful app and other learning materials. And also like I have group experiences with you and other peers in a group. I call them a pod. There we have very lively and engaging discussions about experiences, stories we've lived through, and questions we have. And then also I work with teams, of course, teams that have to launch products, teams that have to develop products, teams that go through a crisis because of COVID, whatever it is. So also like teams are guided by me. And this is one entry point, one kind of like door opener. And the habit coaching per se is like this, and also like everything around. You can also imagine I run other programs that are also like for a couple of weeks, sometimes even half a year, where we really go deep into your current behavior. What routines do you run? What bad habits do you have? What is actually the aspiration that you're looking for? And this is not such an easy process to do. Like setting up your aspiration is a deep process, and there you actually have to start. And then it goes into things like what is your different chronotypes you have had so far? A chronotype is just your inner watch.
Chronotypes?
A chronotype is kind of like, if you could say, it's your inner energy watch, your energy time.
Okay.
And everybody has a certain chronotype. It can also change over the lifetime. It's depending on your preferred get up time in the morning. It's depending on your preferred deep work time through the day, and also like depending on your preferred go to bed time at night. And then connected to that, I work with them on the topic of your energy level. And the energy level, there's an energy curve that is different energy stages over the course of the day. And it's very, very important to learn about your chronotype and to learn about your ideal energy curve, because there you can really say like what kind of routines, what kind of habits, what kind of actually to-dos, tasks, jobs do I do in certain energy levels. This is really, really important. Let's say if you're like a product developer, right, and you have to deliver a very creative concept, you should definitely not work after lunchtime, being rather tired and kind of like not creative and focused. You should really use your prime time and the high time to really, really go into creative projects, into deep personal work, into deep discussions with people, maybe even a conflict situation, right? Because in this stage, you are really mentally, emotionally, and physically in your best state.
And so how do you pick those times during the day? Is it to establish the habits? Do you put the habits according to your energy curve, like on high energy moments? So is it, for example, easier to establish a new habit in the morning because we are energetic than in the evening, or is it super individual?
It's unfortunately very individual. So that's why actually I work with people, because yes, you can read books and there's beautiful books out there, but unfortunately there's also like many methods out there that just simply don't work. They're not sustainable. They're not based on true research, like long-term research. And that's why also like so many people at some point they get the realization it's not so easy. That's why I ask for support. And asking for support is a very, very important also like habits. We actually have to learn more and more. Like many of us entrepreneurs and managers that are so driven, asking for support is actually not of our strengths. Yeah. And that's why people like me, we are there to work, coach, mentor, consult people to really get on track with their routines, their habits, their mental fitness. Of course, also like way more faster, right?
Yeah, right. That's a good point. Yeah. Because a lot of us, I mean, we hear of all those friends and people around us with those amazing habits and what they're all doing. And we easily feel like a failure because we don't get there. And then it's good to ask for help. And I think the important part is it's so much faster, right?
Yeah.
And like reading all those books and just trial and error things.
Yeah. And of course, I've done it myself. You know, I've read books. And then luckily, I did all my trainings, all my certifications, all my education. And in this processes per se, right, I discovered it for myself. It's a very deep process. It can also be hurtful in the sense of, because it goes so deep, it's very emotional. But that's at the core of our behavior with creating habits and a mental fitness practice, right? So this is really going to the core. It's not treating symptoms like I feel stressed, what shall I do, right? Yeah. It's going down into your mind, saying like, what is causing you the stress? Who is telling you that? Which mental saboteur is it that is actually talking to you in a way that stresses you in the end? So like this is truly like I would say also the magic, and maybe the magnetic also like approach here is really asking for the support and really by that, also like in a group of peers sometimes, or one-on-one, it doesn't matter at all what's to your convenience, you really learn faster. You really learn with a person that holds you accountable and is really there for you. And that's a very big difference, especially when it gets so emotional and when it goes down to the core of our behavior.
You as a habit coach, I have to ask you, Eva, on a scale
Yes.
1 to 10, where do you see yourself, you know, with like a habit expert in your personal life? Have you mastered it yourself?
Well, I mastered many, but then again, new ones come up, right? So life is the constant changing, planet. So for me, like there's constantly new habits coming in, and I also try to not build too many at the same time because I know I cannot stick to them.
Yeah.
So also like I have to train my patience. I'm a person that has mental saboteurs like the stickler. I'm rather perfectionist, and I'm also restless. I have this restless mental saboteur in me. So I rather want to do too much at the same time. So I have to hold back. But some of my habits have really become profound habits, so easy to do. I could not get up without them in the morning in my morning routine. And they're very short. Many of them are super short. And also I made them very easy. For example, I made a morning meditation that I'm actually doing lying. So like when I lie, still lie, and the alarm goes off and many people start snoozing. And I use 15 minutes of meditation instead of snoozing. And it's not easy, right? Just lying down and still meditating without falling asleep again. But I made it for myself. I made it easier to do. And all of this just was woven into my daily routines, practice. But there's definitely habits also like struggle with. And then I try to apply my own tools or so even consultants with others. How would you do that, right? Even also like, for example, these reading habits. Because I'm so driven reading and keeping up with my reading and my books, many times I was putting the bar too high. And I had to learn again, make it tiny, Eva, and read it like that, keep on track.
Yeah. You were talking about your saboteurs. I got mother perfectionism. What was the first one you mentioned?
Well, at the time being, I have three very strong mental saboteurs in me. One is the stickler. This is the rather perfectionist person. The second is the pleaser. This is the person that wants others to be good. Many people want to be loved. For me, it's rather important to serve others, to help and support them. And then the third for me is I can be restless at times. This is like, always we call them scanner personalities, like really people that have, so many ideas, so many interests, so many skills and talents that they really try to make these ideas happen.
Okay. Wow. Are there like how many, we can talk about them today, but how many saboteurs are there like identified? Is there like
yes.
of how many?
10 different ones.
10.
Yes, this is a very strong methodology I'm using. It's one of the leading internationally. And there's 10 different ones. And the strongest is our inner judge. And this is the so-called master saboteur, because we are judging ourselves a lot. We're judging others a lot. And we're judging circumstances also a lot. So it has shown to be the strongest saboteur with all of us. And it's very fascinating because these mental saboteurs, they disguise themselves very well. So it's like me working with this method since a couple of years, it took me quite some time to really admit I also have a strong judge, because I thought, no, maybe not. I think not, me not, right? Yeah. So I wasn't seeing it in the beginning, and now I see like, wow, I really also like judging myself a lot, and I need a lot of self-empathy to get better.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, it's good that you tell your personal story and your own experience. I mean,
yes, we always say also, like my fellow coach peers, we're the same as you guys. Like we're struggling with the same things. We know the methods, we know the tools, we have learned them by heart, and I have the big heart to just give that out to you, and that's my pleaser in me. I would say so too. But we're struggling as you, and of course, if you say on a scale from 0 to 10, I might be a 7, right? But I'm definitely also not a 10, right? So that's very blunt and open, of course. We're just humans, we're imperfect, and that's who we are.
Yeah. Awesome. So cool. So we talked about it a lot. Just to, if you would sum it up in a few sentences, what would be the quick tips you have for all of us to start today or start tomorrow? Better to start today, right? With a tiny habit.
Yes. Well, first things first, it's always important to have a clear aspiration. You know, this bigger picture, the why are you doing this? Why do you want to start a habit, right? This is actually not so easy. So give yourself time here. Take really a couple of days, sometimes even 1 2 weeks. Be honest with yourself and really see, is this a true want or is it just a should?
Can you
Right?
give us a few examples on these aspirations? Like,
yes, it could be, for example, I want to move my body more,
Mhm.
right? It mustn't be, I want to go running every day for 15 minutes. This would rather be an outcome you can measure, but I want to move my body more. Actually, this is an aspiration that offers you loads of opportunities, loads of different behaviors you can choose, and then find the true one, right? Or for work, it could be, I want to be more focused, or I want to be more creative, right? This is, for many, this is like, oof, that's a really big picture. So
Yeah.
like, how do I do that? And that's the magic behind it. That opens up kind of like the doors, the opportunities for different behaviors. So this would be an aspiration.
And we
And you
should
could choose any.
on one first, right?
Yes, it's good to have one, and maybe you choose one for your private life and one for your business if you want so, but I rather prefer to just choose one and then for that build a tiny habit.
In the
Right?
tiny habit, maximum 3, better one by one,
Yes,
right?
maximum
And make it
3.
super
Yes.
ridiculously small.
Yes, very, very easy. And then if you ask me, like, what would be a second tip, also like what we tend to do, also like as entrepreneurs, managers, we tend to think too complex many times. And the question I always ask my clients is like, just taking a deep breath and asking yourself, how can I make this situation easier? Right? It mustn't be a tiny habit already. Sometimes it's a one-time behavior, and that's enough, right? You don't have to have a habit, right? But the question of how can I make this easier is sometimes a very kind of like revealing and relieving one, right? And another maybe third tip is coming back to rather the mental saboteurs in you and the inner judge that is really the master saboteur. Maybe you want to observe yourself in the next couple of days and really like listen closely. How judging are you towards yourself? This can be very like also like revealing here, because our judge disguises, as said, very easily. But this makes you really more aware of this inner mental saboteur, and maybe also the others that are there. And this also like might be a starting point to think about your behavior, because building on this judgment, the self-judgment, you act in a certain way. You also judge others. That's why you communicate in a certain way. And that could be also like for you some good exercise, some good tip next to framing your aspiration and questioning, how can I make this easier? Ask yourself, how am I judging myself?
So
Not easy, not easy
working
tips.
or not easy. So working for myself.
Not saying it's easy.
And not so much, get the feedback from the outside, but more working on myself and what feels good for me and
Yes.
what do I really want to do. And maybe for me it takes longer, right, than for somebody else to establish a habit, but then it's there. And
It's there.
I know the feeling of failure, establishing habits, and just like, oh God, I just can't do it. But I also know the feeling of success when you establish a nice habit. And,
How does it make you feel then?
and it just feels awesome. It just feels so fabulous. And it's really something that structures my day. And that energizes me. And I'm more into the morning habits.
Yes.
But I understand many people are more into evening habits. And I imagine just maybe the last question, it's more probably morning or evening, and it's not so much during a day, right?
It's also here very diverse depending on your chronotype and your energy curve, but the research shows that overall people have stronger habits in the morning.
Yeah.
Why is that? Not surprisingly, we have to get up. We have to go to school, go to work, and by that we have a stronger morning routine. And then again, I always say like the way you wake up in the morning is actually the way you go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
and where we actually don't really have a strong routine. I would say many of us, most of us, is actually evening routines, right? We get up in the morning, by that we push ourselves and really get out there, but then evenings, not really strong routine, compared to the mornings especially. And during the day, actually, I call it the no man's land.
Yeah.
Nobody has a real strong routine there. And this is really like, we're like just really cruising around there. And that's actually not good. So that's the one, that's the one you really should work on, because that's where people actually can take away your time and energy, right? If you don't have the routines, the habits there, saying no comes so hard.
Yeah, it does. And then the day is gone.
Yeah, very much.
Thank you so much, Eva. This was super exciting. I learned a lot. With every talk, we have a giveaway for the community. What are you offering us today?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to give to one person a 5 days program where you create 3 tiny habit recipes. Wow. And then we follow up with a half-an-hour personal one-on-one coaching, an online coaching. So these 5 days programs with this half-an-hour online coaching will help you set up your first 3 tiny habit recipes.
Wow.
And yeah, I will follow up with you, and you can also share my contact data if you wish so. And I have some very interesting offers out there, and I would love to give everybody a discount on these offers, and by that making the threshold maybe a bit lower and starting your own experience there.
Wow, thank you so much. That sounds amazing. I'm sure everybody wants that. And it's also cool that I can say I have a habit coach. I mean,
you're so welcome.
Last question, like habit coach, are there a lot of habit coaches around? Is it more a US?
No.
Or in Austria, I think in Austria and Germany, it's like, okay, there's not so many, right?
No, in Austria, I don't know anybody else, honestly. I did my research, but I don't know anybody else. In Germany, I know 1 or 2, and globally, I know about 80, maybe 100 that really work as a habit coach. So it's a very, very rare species.
Wow, yeah. Well, that's awesome. So it's still a niche, but it's like everybody needs it on the other hand, right?
Yeah.
Just like everybody's doing it on his own and trying to.
Yeah, everybody's trying to cook its own recipe, and for some time that's nice and good, but then you see it's taking too much time and energy, and it's not sustainable, and that's where we can come in.
Yeah, awesome. So cool. Okay, Eva, thank you so much. We're going to drop
You're
all
welcome.
the links and your contact info in the comments and the different channels so everybody can reach out to you. Thank you so much for this live talk. I think it's an amazing topic, and I learned a lot. Thank you. I'm going to start with a new habit today. I pick one. And I work for my aspiration.
Very much.
Definitely.
It was beautiful to talk to you, and all the best to all your community and you guys out there. And if you have any questions, follow-up questions, just drop me a message, reach out to me anytime.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eva. Have a good day.
Welcome.
Bye,
You
everybody.
too.